Man oh man, I love that iconic riff from 1983 by the great band The Fix, and how appropriate. We're gonna fix something today because one thing always leads to another. This is a tale of two laptops. One is a Packard Bell Statesman, the other is Zenith Data Systems 625NL. The Packard Bell was licensed from Zenith Data Systems, and though they were nearly identical on the outside, there are some differences on the inside. The Packard Bell is 486 SX33, while the Zenith Data System is a 386 SLC25. One with a bad screen and one with a good screen. One with a bad case and one with a good case. One with a bad hard drive and one with a good hard drive, and one with a good power distribution board, and well, you get the point. You could have said it was the best of times and it was the worst of times if you're into literature or stuff like that. Now, I received the Packard Bell some months ago before filming. I was doing some tests preparing to brush up on my troubleshooting and soldering skills because I wanted to start making videos such as this. I have many vintage computers and thought, why not pollute YouTube with some of my thoughts, ideas, and real modest skills? So I purchased the Packard Bell. It sort of worked when I got it. Since I am cheap and lazy, I did not immediately go and replace every capacitor in the system, putting full risk on my below $30 laptop. So I plugged in the Packard Bell, started up, and it ran after some BIOS configurations and actually booted to a Windows 3.1 screen. I played with it for about 3 minutes when suddenly it cut off. Almost immediately, I smelled the all too familiar waft of cap smoke and literally said, "Oh good, something to fix." I quickly tore down the Packard Bell and pulled out the power distribution board. I noticed that it had plenty of capacitors replaced, as well as some transistors, resistors, you get it. I might need a cheap oscilloscope even. So I carefully wrote down all the capacitors, ordered them from a place, and ordered the cheap oscilloscope from a different place. A few days later, the caps came in as well as my oscilloscope, which also had a capacitance tester, so cool, I can check for bad ones. I smelled around the power board with my nose and quickly found the bad capacitor. Some people do it with their eyes. I use my nose. God blessed me and cursed me with a sensitive olfactory. So I took the board to my wife and tried to get her to do the old nose test. Well, she couldn't, but she did notice a capacitor was bulged and leaking. I guess I missed that. Anyway, I replaced all the capacitors using my cheap soldering iron and cheap solder sucker. It worked, no problem. But the cool folks on YouTube use solder stations, so I ordered me one. It works, but it wasn't an expensive one. I put the power distribution board back in, and presto, the laptop was up and running once again with the bad screen and the other bad parts, and it booted to Windows 3.1 once again, and I was able to voyeuristically peruse the previous owner's email. Now apparently he liked Denny's because he wanted to meet his friends there on Friday nights. So nothing interesting. I wiped out all his personal stuff and began adding my own utilities. Still, the LCD screen had a bad spot, and I thought maybe I would do a video fixing the screen, the battery pack, upgrading the hard drive. That was going to be my first video. So yay, I got a subject. I noticed the backlight on the screen went out and it became very dark. I pulled the power board out one more time and found a terrible looking JS239 transistor that converted the 22 volts to 12 volts for the LCD backlight. I ordered one of those. I actually ordered 10 of them. That's the way they come on eBay. And I also noticed this weird capacitor bodge between 2 points on the board, so I decided to replace that one too. It was easy enough to desolder and solder back in, and when the new JS239 arrived. And so I put it together, fired it up. The power supply light was going off and on, no power to the board. I figured it was doing a power protection thingy, so I quickly unplugged my only good power supply for that laptop and checked its voltages. Well, the power supply voltages are all good. I then revisited my power distribution board. It seemed to have a short on the board legs where 22 volt was supposed to come in. I removed the Bodge capacitor deal. Still shorted. I removed the JS239 transistor. Still shorted. I brought out my most significant magnification methods and carefully traced all over the board, but I could not figure out how in the world it was shorted. Now, I know that there are many experts on YouTube, I can name a few, or a lot, who would immediately find it. But I am not as adept at electronics as they are, so I did the only other thing a guy like me could do. I bought another broken laptop of similar lineage, and I decided I was going to use its power board on the Packard Bell. Some people sniff flowers, others sniff wine, and as a kid, my mom was afraid of me sniffing glue, so she bought that terrible model glue that never worked. It did smell like lemons, though. But what she didn't know was I sniff electronics. You can learn a lot about a PCB by sniffing it. Okay, maybe not. Maybe just that something is burned out. Anyway, I summarily plugged in the Zenith Data Systems laptop, again without replacing all the capacitors first, just to see if it would boot. It powered on, but would not boot because the hard drive was bad. At least I had a good power board to work with. As you can see, I tried to get it to boot by adjusting the BIOS settings, but no luck. That was okay by me, at least it had a good LCD screen and a good power distribution board. After a few minutes of trying to get the hard drive to boot, I knew it was time to tear this laptop apart. I got the other laptop in.
Sorry, what?
I got the other laptop in.
Oh.
And it's got a bad hard drive.
We have lots of hard drives.
Yeah, I'm gonna replace it hopefully with this. It's got a good screen. That's a good part. Has a good screen. But what I really want to find out is I want to take out this power distribution board, okay? Because it distributes, and these will, these are the caps that popped last time, so they'll probably pop. So, but the good news is I have all the replacements for these. But I want to find out because what's happening is this is 22 volts, right? And so I have 22 volts coming in from multiple prongs. Well, when I plug it into the other power distribution board, this light will stay green, right, when everything's normal. When I plug it into the power distribution board, it starts flickering, and that tells me right away that
you're not getting steady power.
No, it's not about steady power. It's got a short, and so what it's doing is protecting itself. It has where it's like a relay.
Like a fault.
Yeah, so it's getting a short and saying, okay, I'm not going to allow power. I'm going to just sit there and flicker. So what I want to find out is what's wrong with my other distribution board, so that maybe I can fix that. And because originally the reason I bought that LCD was that I was going to this goes in the internals. I was going to replace the LCD with a color version because these are just black and white. But anyway, that's my story, and that's right. But there's some minor differences, but it looks like the power distribution board is approximately the same, not exactly the same. But at least I'll be able to tell what I need to know. I need to get to know. There are subtle differences between the two machines because they were different in spec, that is in processor, a few other things. They had different boards, therefore the mounting was slightly off but manageable. You'll see that in a little while. The hard drive, floppy, battery compartment, all that was the same. The power plugs were the same, but the LCD had a different connector, albeit a connector with more connections. I guess that is for additional display modes, perhaps. But I wasn't getting 12 volts, which is for the backlight of the LCD. And that one, the Packard Bell, has a bad LCD in one spot. Okay, so this distribution board, the problem was from here, and this looks like a more modern distribution. Got these ICs here are transformer. Interesting. Okay, so I had continuity between this Okay, it's the inside. Okay, that is right. Okay, that's interesting. So if I look here, it's the good board, so and when I get over here, so I was right. This is not supposed to be grounded, but somehow it is. And unfortunately, they're two different boards, so I can't really do apples to apples on this. So I wonder what grounded them. So there was a bodge capacitor put from here to here, and I took it off. It was bad to begin with. I took it off, it worked. I put one exactly back on, it worked. And then just, you know, through usage, it started to fail. Now I'm looking at... I was not able to figure out why suddenly one of the 22-volt feeds became grounded on the board. I checked every trace and I narrowed the issue down to potentially a few components that I would need to order. I do plan to fix this eventually, but what I really wanted to do was just to make a complete laptop, and that is when I started thinking about mixing the two laptops together. Even though the power distribution board could have worked in the Packard Bell, I decided to keep it safe and keep the power distribution board with the Zenith Data Systems 386 motherboard. The Packard Bell with a good case, the hard drive, and good battery charging controller, but it had a bad battery case. The Zenith Data Systems with the bad case, the good LCD, but the LCD would not fit with the Packard Bell motherboard. And then, of course, the Zenith Data Systems also had a good battery box, but believe it or not, the battery charging controller in that box was shorted and bad. This was going to end up being a truly 50-50 parts exchange project. So Frankenstein's monster came to play, and that will be part 2 of this series.